I am live, peach cup in hand, only water inside, as always. I appreciate everybody who's been tuning in. The archive views are on fire. Definitely appreciate that. More subscribers yesterday and more Twitter followers as well. And definitely appreciate the support over on Twitter. And do three things for me as you come in, as you watch this video in the archive. Hit the like button. If you are coming in live, obviously you're going to hit the like button as you come in, but hit the like button and hit that subscribe button. And I definitely appreciate those things. I want to get into some of what's going on this weekend and gratefulness. Grateful is a beautiful word. Every day, wake up grateful that God woke me up. Every night, go to bed grateful that God got me to bed safely. And I want to be grateful to the boxing gods as well today. We're coming off of a great weekend of fights, and we're going into a great weekend of fights. And we really have a 13-week streak set up right now of 13 straight weekends of great boxing. Some greater than others, but great boxing overall. So I'm not one that's going to come here and complain about things just for the sake of complaining about things. Shout out Chicano Prophet and go check out El Chile on Chicano Prophet's channel if you're catching this in the archive, because I was on there yesterday, yours truly. And I appreciate the platform and the fair boxing talk that we had on there. And it was refreshing. Not guys screaming over each other, just dudes who either agree or disagree, coming into conclusions together. So that was definitely appreciated. But one thing about this weekend that is flying under the radar. This is a welterweight bonanza this weekend. Half of the top 10 fighters in the welterweight rankings are active this weekend, in one weekend, which means you're going to have a shakeup like a magic 8-ball of the welterweight division. And when I say half of the top 10, I use the bad left hook rankings because I like their divisional rankings. I overall, for the most part, like their pound for pound rankings. I generally cite the box rec divisional and pound for pound rankings, even though I hate them here because it gives me an expanded look. Like box rec goes way out. They'll give you top 1,000 pound for pound if you want to look at it. But as far as consistency, bad left hook does a good job. Unlike sort of ESPN. And it's due to their panel is smaller. ESPN's panel is too big. And the reason they went to a bigger panel as far as rankings goes is to try to come out with a more objective look. But it actually comes out the opposite, I think, if you have too many voices and too many brains involved in the process. And Tank Davis being top 10 in ESPN pound for pound rankings, anytime you see something like that, you just throw away the rest of the rankings. That's just too bad. That's not good. So you just trash the whole rankings. Wipe your rear end with it. Print it out, wipe your rear end with the ESPN pound for pound rankings. But this weekend, according to Bad Left Hook, we've got 5 of the top 10 welterweights in action. And that is a beautiful thing. My guy G Funky often says that the welterweight division is dumpster juice, is a cesspool, and he's been right in the past. It's a talent-rich division. It's been a talent-rich division for a while, but it's been an underwhelming division. It's a talent-rich division of guys who have somehow, for the most part, avoided the best fights out there, for the most part. And I think a lot of that has to do with some of the things Al Heyman has done in the past. But to give Al Heyman credit, he's put together a good, really good pay-per-view card this weekend with Ugas versus Crawford. Ugas, I wish Crawford was in action. Spence versus Ugas at the top. So that gives you a meaningful fight in the welterweight division. It gives you a consolidation of belts, of the major belts. So one of these two guys is going to consolidate 3 major belts. What it also gives you is a 50-50 toss-up fight leading into it between another top 10 welterweight and Butiev and a guy right outside of the top 10 in the welterweight and Stanionis. So two front foot fighters, action fighters, offensive minded fighters going at each other at the same point in their careers. So that's what that gives us as well. You also have Cody Crowley, and this is a fight that's flying under the radar, and this is a fight that I'm going to highlight as I'm giving my Spence versus Ugas official preview and prediction tomorrow. I'm going to obviously give my official prediction for that fight, but as I'm doing that, we're going to talk about Cody Crowley versus Josecito Lopez because that's flying under the radar. Josecito Lopez is a plus 350 underdog against Cody Crowley, who is number 10 according to Bad Left Hook Boxing, badlefthook.com. So that's a good fight. And that's a fight where if you're looking for value, Josecito Lopez may be a little undervalued there, and Josecito Lopez gives Cody Crowley a possible name on the resume. So just an action-packed weekend of boxing, and with all of that happening, and I just mentioned all those good fights that we're going to have, and shout out to D-Style Boxing in the building. What's up with D-Style Boxing? And go check out the Roundtable tonight, the best talk in boxing. And that's, correct me if I'm wrong, D-Style, I think that's 7 p.m. Central. And that's going to be on Maestro A Boxing's channel. And they got some heavy hitters on there tonight, Ring IQ, and I think Montero Boxing is on there as well. So check that out. But amongst all those really good, compelling fights in the welterweight division, we got Conor Benn, who is number 9 in the rankings at Bad Left Hook, fighting against Van Heerden. And the reason this fight is flying under the radar is pretty simple. It's buried amongst, at least here in America, it's buried amongst other good fights in the welterweight division. Spence versus Ugas, Butiev versus Stanionis, Cody Crowley versus Josecito Lopez. And Conor Benn is fighting as a minus 1,600 favorite. So obviously that fight is going to fly under the radar because it doesn't provide much value to us as adding to the Conor Benn story other than him being active. And I often say, if you're not going to be fighting tough competition, at least stay in people's faces, at least give us highlight reel KOs. So that's what Conor Benn has to do this weekend. He has one part of that equation down. He's staying active, but continue to give us highlight reel KOs, much like he did against Chris Algieri, where he looked impressive. And as Chicano Prophet here says, pump for the Crowley fight too. It's a fun fight. It's another fun fight. That is a good card. You got Brandon Lee buried in that card too. Brandon Lee's in the card, and he's a minus 2,500 favorite. So you'd like to see these guys step up. You'd like to see Brandon Lee step up. You'd like to see Conor Benn step up. It's definitely time for him. But if these guys aren't going to do the step-up process yet, at least keep them active, right? Every couple months, especially for Brandon Lee. Keep him active every 2 to 3 months because he definitely needs to step up in competition. But the question for Conor Benn is, because we already know what's going to happen this weekend, right? He has an opponent in front of him that should give him a guaranteed victory. I mean, it's as close. Van Heerden is a bait dog. All right. And Conor Benn is the pit bull here. This is like a glorified sparring session. He is supposed to walk through this guy. He is supposed to get him out there. He is supposed to look good in the process. That's what's supposed to happen. It's all set up for him here. So as a boxing fan, not a Conor Benn fan, just a boxing fan in general, you start to look past this fight and say, okay, what's next for Conor Benn? What makes sense? And what we would like to see from Conor Benn is for him to fight the best competition out there available for him. He'll have guys available for him, as do other guys in the welterweight division. We've talked about Virgil Ortiz. We've talked about Boots Ennis. We would love to see these guys start to mix it up with each other. We would love to see Conor Benn mix it up with one of those guys. We would love to see Conor Benn mix it up with a Spence, a Crawford, or Ugas. But in reality, if you look at the picture, if you look at the overall picture of the welterweight division and what's happening this weekend, Spence versus Ugas is a unification fight. Those guys are busy because what's going to happen is Conor Benn is out there right now He did an interview today saying he wants to fight Ugas if Ugas beats Spence. But what's going to happen if Ugas beats Spence in reality? One of two things happens. If Ugas beats Spence, say by close decision, and Spence doesn't get beat up in the process, doesn't hurt his eye, Spence will be demanding an immediate rematch, and Spence will get it. That's what's going to happen. And if he doesn't get it, guess what? We have an undisputed fight on the table, and I have more confidence in Ugas fighting in an undisputed championship than I do Errol Spence if he were to win, to be quite honest. I think Ugas is about that life. I think Ugas doesn't have as much leverage as Spence. I think Ugas is concerned with legacy as well as money. And I think if Ugas wins and Spence doesn't demand an immediate rematch, I think he would be willing to fight Terrence Crawford for all the marbles. So what I'm saying is, realistically, Spence and Ugas are off the table for the meantime for Conor Benn. Crawford's there if he wants it, but we know that's not going to happen. He's not going to fight Bud Crawford. He's going to line up with the rest of the guys who are staying away from the elephant in the room, the boogeyman, Bud Crawford. Not going to happen. So that takes Spence, Crawford, Ugas off the table for Conor Benn going forward, at least for the next year, at least for the foreseeable future. The top three are off the table in the division. So that gives us Ortiz and Ennis 4 and 5. So what happens at 4 and 5? Ortiz and Ennis are two guys who are making their way up the rankings as well. Two guys are on the cusp of, they're already top 5. So you can't say they're on the cusp. I think we need to stop treating Ennis and Ortiz as contenders, or sometimes we even treat them as prospects. We need to move past that. And these guys in the top 10 divisions need to start fighting each other. So let's say a Butayev beats Stanionis and moves up from 8 to 6 in the rankings. You have to take a hard look at that point of Ortiz or Ennis fighting Butayev. I don't care about mandatories and all that stuff because we know Spence, Crawford, and Ugas are busy. They're going to be busy. And more on Spence versus Ugas tomorrow, official prediction. But you're going to have to start demanding Virgil Ortiz, Boots Ennis, Butayev, Stanionis. They're going to have to start mixing it up with each other. And Butayev versus Stanionis, that's happening this weekend. So Ortiz and Ennis are two guys that are going to have to get creative and figure out ways to get in there with top 10 competition as well. But realistically, those two guys are off the table for Conor Benn too, because I don't have confidence. If I'm just cutting to the table, I don't have confidence that Conor Benn is going to get in there with the top 5 welterweight right now. I don't think Conor Benn is going to get in there with the top 7 welterweight right now. So realistically, what are we looking at for Conor Benn going forward? Realistically, we're looking at Conor Benn either fighting Kell Brook at a catch weight between 147 and 154, somewhere between 150 and 152, which would be a big fight out there. And that's a fight that's on the table. Could possibly happen. We'll see what Conor Benn is talking about in the post-fight press conference if Kell Brook's name is brought up. Because if Kell Brooks wants to keep fighting, that's a big fight for him. It's a big fight for him. And quite frankly, the bigger guy, naturally bigger guy with more experience, it's a fight he can win. It's a fight he can win. Ben wants Con next. God, I hope not. I hope not. Shout out Goat Mario P. And y'all hit that like button as y'all come in. But God, I hope not. These dudes can't be calling out losers of fights. Call out the winner. All right, so Conor Benn versus Kell Brook is on the table. But I think realistically, what happens next for Conor Benn is we're starting to hear rumblings about Adrian Broner coming back. Steven Espinoza has been talking about it the past couple of days. Oh, Adrian Broner is back in camp. So I think what they're going to do with Adrian Broner is get him in there in a stay busy fight, try to figure out if he can make 140. If not, settle him in at 147 because I have huge doubts Adrian Broner, who has always had trouble with weight, can make 140 at this point in his career. So I think he's going to have to settle in at 147. So I think what they do with Broner is get him in there in an easy fight and then step him up in a bigger fight as a glorified gatekeeper against a top 10 welterweight on the come up, much like a Virgil Ortiz, much like a Boots Ennis, much like a Conor Benn. We've heard rumblings of a possible Conor Benn versus Adrian Broner fight. We've heard Conor Benn say he would be interested in fighting Adrian Broner in his Coming to America fight. I think that's a fight that's brewing. So realistically, I think what happens with Conor Benn is maybe he takes another fight across the pond this summer, early fall, and then his Coming to America fight happens in the winter or early 2023. And that's when we get an Adrian Broner type opposition fight for him. Shout out Nopal in the building, Al Chile in the building. Hit that like button as y'all come in, please. And hit that sub button if you're not subbed in the archives. And make sure to hit your alerts. And make sure to follow on Twitter as well, Calix Boxing too. But I think realistically, that's what happens with Conor Benn. He's going to have his Coming to America fight eventually, and it's going to have to be against a named opponent. And Adrian Broner is the perfect opponent for that. He's going to give you flash. He's going to give you good fireworks leading up to the fight. He's going to give you a great ring entrance, and he's going to give you a name of value on your resume, even though he's way past his prime, and even though he was overhyped throughout his career, he's still a name. And he's going to be a good measuring stick even at 32, 33 years old. He's going to be a good measuring stick for Conor Benn. So you do an Adrian Broner fight, or you do an Adrian Broner type of fighter. Sort of like what Cody Crowley is doing against Josesito Lopez this weekend. It's a name. It's a guy well past his prime, but it's a name. It's a guy you're favored against. It's a guy that if you are who they say you are, you will win that fight. You should win that fight if you're Cody Crowley, but I'm telling you, and I'll talk about it tomorrow, Josesito Lopez, do not sleep on him. That's a guy who is undervalued by Vegas right now coming into this fight as plus 350. We'll see. An official Spence versus Ugas prediction on the show as well tomorrow. But Conor Benn, I think that's what we're looking at. We're looking at one or two more fights across the pond. That's including the fight this weekend against Van Heerden. He's not going to have any troubles this weekend. He's going to look good. He's going to get a highlight reel KO and keep it moving. And hopefully they keep him active, relatively active every 3 to 4 months. And I think that America fight is coming. But realistically for Conor Benn, I think we're looking at another year. If we're looking at the landscape, we're looking at another year and a half before this guy has a quality top 10 fight on his resume. And I think that's what we're looking at. But Butiev versus Stanionis, that's number 8. Butiev versus Stanionis right outside the rankings. But this weekend, we've got value in the welterweight division. We've got a welterweight bonanza. We've got half of the top 10 guys in action. Spence versus Ugas, Butiev versus Stanionis, Benn versus Van Heerden, and Cody Crowley versus Josesito Lopez. And I look forward to this weekend. There's going to be a shakeup in the welterweight rankings regardless of what happens. And I'm looking forward to it. And I will be buying that fight, and I will possibly be live during the fight. So make sure to check that out as well. So on that note, got to head out. God bless. Appreciate y'all. Appreciate the support.